All right. Look at this. Hiya, welcome everybody. We've got a top 20 rundown on this edition of Top of the Pops. And I think they're playing the number one here from this episode dated, wait for it, 6th of March 1969. Our first 1960s reaction. It's finally the day today, and it sounds like Peter Starset with Where Do You Go My Lovely, which will be at number one. They may play more of this later on, I think. I think they did that quite commonly in 1960s and early 70s Top of the Pops, where they'd play a bit of the number one and then they'd play more of it later. So confirmation of the number one there. 6th of March 1969.
And a welcome to this week's Top DJ, Alan
Top
Freeman.
DJ. And Fluff is your host.
Another sparkling edition of Top of the Pops. Here's the same number one. Amen Corner, a bit unlucky. The second week at number two. I want to make it next week. Anyway, let me tell you that...
I don't know if they make it next week.
Temptations. They've left number three, taken a nosedive right down to number 8. Donald Pierce creeps in at number 3. We have Cilla Black and Sandy Shaw and Marvin Gaye making very determined bids this week in the top 10, and it could be very interesting. But anyway, on this very
some
first
big
night
names
of Top of the
coming
Pops,
up.
let's get underway with our new release spot. As a matter of fact, they've been on the scene quite a time, and they've had some many tremendous hits, I might add, as a matter of fact, Pop, because this one, I think, is going to follow up the other ones. It's going to be sensational. Don Juan, Top of the Pops, Dave D. Dozy, Beaky Mick, and Titch.
Right, okay, so this is a new release. It's not yet in the chart. It's Don Juan by Dave D. Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch. So welcome everybody to another Top of the Pops reaction. As you can probably tell, I'm absolutely delighted that we're finally getting a 1960s episode reacted to in this series. The closest we came was one which was a bit over a year ago, I think, which was from early 1970. Obviously there is certain 1960s editions that are available to me to use, but I've been avoiding ones with a certain Mr. Jimmy Savile for obvious reasons. And then when this one came on my radar, it was a no-brainer. Right, so Dave D. Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch. Sounds like a comedy kind of band, doesn't it? I don't think they were though. I think they were, you know, like your standard, fairly sort of serious, fairly credible, yet probably quite sort of fun and a bit teeny boppery pop band of the 1960s. Don Juan, which I'm assuming I heard that right, and is the name of the track. This isn't something I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with the number one, Peter Starset, but obviously we can talk about that when we hear it again. Presumably we'll hear it again later. I've not looked at this episode apart from a quick scrub through, so I don't know about cuts or anything like that, if I have to make any cuts or if there's any cuts already. As always, I will leave the information at the top of the description text box. How do I find this? Nice Spanish tinge to it. Yeah, it's good this. I'm pretty certain I've never heard this before. Obviously it's 1969, well before my own personal era. Honestly, I might look that old, but I'm not. Yeah, I think this is a decent little pop song, a little bit novelty, but in a good way. Yeah, I don't really know enough about Dave D. Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch, but I'm certain I will have put some interesting information about them in the ticker bar.
Don Juan from Dave D. Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch. Incidentally, Pop, because we've had lots of letters say that we never have American artists on Top of the Pops, whether in the charts. Well, you know, it's often pretty difficult because when their records break in America and start to break over here too, they're usually pretty busy working in America. But we're delighted to say we've got somebody over in Top of the Pops tonight. He's been in the top 20 very recently, and is still there at number 20 with For Once in My Life. He's got a brand new one called I Don't Know Why. Top of the Pops is delighted to say good evening to Mr. Stevie Wonder.
All right, okay. Mr. Stevie Wonder is at number 20. This will presumably be a London studio performance from Little Stevie Wonder. Was he still Little Stevie back then, or was he just Stevie Wonder? But I don't know if Stevie Wonder, maybe he appeared on Top of the Pops more, a few more times in the 70s. It just seems quite a little bit of a minor coup, really, for the BBC to get him in the Top of the Pops studio here in 1969. Oh yeah, I mean, what do you say about Stevie Wonder? I'll hold my hands up and say I'm not an absolutely massive fan, and there's a certain song of his, and you'll all know it because it was a massive single in the 1980s. I Just Called Say I Love You. I can't stand that. Never liked it when I heard it as a child. It's not grown on me in my adult years either. But this one, and I forgot what Fluff had said this was called, but sounds good. So he's got up from his piano and presumably he's miming. He was certainly miming his piano, obviously, because he's just suddenly stopped playing it and stood up. So yeah, as I say, I'm not expecting to be able to really speak a lot about a lot of what was going to be seen here. It's just going to be a case of me just trying to enjoy the music along with you. But then again, as this is a reaction, I feel I do need to talk a fair bit. Which will probably annoy some of you, but it's a reaction, you know, that's kind of the point. But these ones from, this first one from the late 1960s, and then a lot of the 70s ones I've done, it has been a learning curve for me. You know, it's just been an excuse for me to discover stuff that was before my time. And similar with Dave D and those lot previously, this is a song that is ringing no bells for me, but I'm not expecting it to. But I'll be amazed if, apart from the number one, which we've got to come, I'll be amazed if there's other stuff on here that I'm unfamiliar with. I think I said that right.
Stevie Wonder, and I hope that when time permits from America, Stevie will appear much more often in Top of the Pops. Could come back to a big smash hit with that one. Anyway, right now, let's go on to our tip for the top. Oh, before we have our tip for the top, for the Cliff Richard fans, good news in at number 16 this week with good times, and it look like being better times too. Anyway, back to our tip for the top in Top of the Pops tonight. The group we've had here before with many smash hits. As a matter of fact, the song is just a little down-tempo this time, but the feel's the same. It's called One Road, and it's Top of the Pops with The Love Affair.
March '69.
Next week. That's our tip for the top this week in Top of the Pops. One Road from the Love Affair. It's a record that sort of really gets into the system after a while too. I think it's going to be a big smash hit for them. Anyway, right now in Top of the Pops, let's go on to a very, very special song indeed, because we think that it could be one of the big smash hits of 1969, particularly in Europe. That's right, we are talking about the British entry for the 1969 Eurovision Song Contest. Boom, bang, a bang, Top of the Pops.
All right,
Lulu.
I do know this. It's Boom Bang a Bang by Lulu, and yes, as Fluff told you, it was the UK entry for the Eurovision Song Contest of 1969, and it... Now then, I think it won, but it was like drew with other nations. I'll put the info down on the information bar below. But I think this was what, like, it's ringing a bell at 1969. It was like a four-way tie, I think, and I'm sure Lulu's Boom Bang a Bang was one of the four winners or co-winners. People who watch more modern comedy from the BBC may be familiar with this track, as it was the theme tune for the comedy series that I think probably started about 10 years ago or so, maybe a bit under, Him and Her, which starred Russell Tovey and Sarah Soleimani. That's some stuff that I may have mentioned in the info bar, but if I didn't, it doesn't matter because I actually talked about it. I'm my own vocal info bar today. Yeah, this is all right for what it is. It's a fun, slightly silly pop song. I never found Lulu to be the most credible of artists, but you know, there's a certain charm to this, isn't there? And for Eurovision, knowing even in its earlier days in the 60s was quite kitsch and camp and cheesy and all the rest of it. You know, this is ideal. This is an ideal Eurovision song, really, isn't it? Not sure if this got to number one, but I'll have put the chart position, the peak chart position, on screen.
The British entered the 1969 Eurovision Song Contest there from Lulu, and right now we get back to the American scene. As a matter of fact,
she looks like she's been held hostage. Probably you don't really want to think about knowing the BBC in those days.
Anyway, we've got an American group, and they make sensational records. They've been in and out of the top 20, and they're just slightly out of it at the moment. They could dash back in. Call people, here come the Times.
The Times. Not a band or group I'm familiar with again, and certainly not a song I'm familiar with either. I don't think. Sometimes I like to wait for some of these to get going, and then it's like, oh yeah, I've heard that somewhere on the telly, or I remember my mum or dad playing it like nearly 40 years ago or whatever. But I hope you're enjoying this edition of Top of the Pops and this reaction to it. I've got next month's reaction lined up, and I'm looking forward to it. Don't want to give any clues out, but it'll be an interesting one. I think they're all interesting, really. Even the editions with a lot of music that I don't particularly rate. You know, it's interesting to just kind of sit back and look at a different point in time. You know, the ones obviously within my lifetime, and certainly from the mid-80s onwards. I feel that I can give a lot more information as I'm sat here live talking about the episodes and the songs. But I do like the ones. I mean, this is what, from 54 years ago. Wow. Sorry if I've made anyone feel really old there. who remember this edition of Top of the Pops like it was yesterday. There again, this maybe, now that it's got going, sounds a little bit familiar, but then again, it's kind of like it's a vocal soul track. I mean, it's a genre that's decent, but I'm not a massive fan of. You know, I suppose some songs like this, they kind of sound a little bit like others, don't they? You know, they're obviously in the sort of Four Tops, Temptations, Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye kind of mould, you know. And I don't want to tar everyone with the same brush, like, oh, all sort of Motown / soul sounds the same, because it doesn't. I mean, Stevie Wonder certainly had a unique sound, all of his own. Certainly the Stevie Wonder songs we saw performed earlier on did. Is good. Yeah, I like that. Nothing on here I've disliked, really.
And that's about the story, Pop, because everybody's got to have somebody, and that's for sure. That was the times there, and people glad to have them in Top of the Pops, and I hope they come back very soon. Now, along with the Cliff Richard fans, I think the Elvis Presley fans can feel very happy too. He's coming this week at number 17 with An I Can Dream, and I think Elvis is heading for the top 10, make no mistake about that. But talking about big jumps, last week at number 26, this week right into the top 20, just outside the top 10 at number 11. It's a beautiful sound, and Top of the Pops welcomes back the boys who've won so many awards, it's unbelievable. This one's called The 1st of May, and it's the Bee Gees.
Bee Gees? Did you say you're the 1st of May, or the 1st of many? I don't know. Some close-ups of the Gibbs there. I think it's quite easy to forget how long the Bee Gees had actually been going. You know, they had some big hits in the late 70s when they sort of hopped firmly on the disco bandwagon, and they did the soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever and what have you. And then they had another little renaissance in the late 80s with You Win Again, which is a fantastic pop song, one of my favourite singles of the 80s there. And they were still having top 10 hits into the early 90s, so I think For Whom the Bell Tolls would have been a sort of outside bet for Christmas #1 in 1993. It didn't get to Christmas #1 or indeed #1 at all, but it was, I think it got top 10, maybe even scraped top 5. But we're not here to talk about that, we're here to talk about this one, which might be the 1st of May or the 1st of many, I don't know. Yeah, I think when you say the Bee Gees and you like, oh, name a famous Bee Gees track, everyone's going to name things like Stayin' Alive, You Win Again, Night Fever, obviously, Massachusetts, possibly, if anybody's going to name one from the 60s. Massachusetts, I think, would have been the Bee Gees' breakthrough hit, certainly in the UK, probably across the world as well. But this one, it's not ringing any bells for me, and I mean, I'm not even entirely sure what it's called, but I'll have obviously told you the exact title and other interesting information about it on screen. But I don't think this is one that a casual, at best, Bee Gees fan is gonna suddenly blurt out as being one of their, standout hits. But as a single goes, as a Top of the Pops performance, this is all right. It's a little bit of a ballad. Yeah, I quite like that.
First of May from the Bee Gees. Well, we've told you all about the challenges. There's Donald Pierce and Cilla Black and Sandy Shaw and Dean Martin and Elvis Presley all on the go. Amen Corner still waiting at number 2. But again, in Top of the Pops this week, number 1 to Peter Sarstedt.
All right, so we're at the number 1. And it is Peter Sarstedt, and I was expecting, especially with Fluff reeling out a load of names that are, you know, big names, Elvis, although Elvis never appeared in the Top of the Pops studio, obviously, Cilla Black, etc. I was expecting to hear a lot more stuff that I was familiar with, and we have had some big names on this edition, with Stevie Wonder, obviously, Bee Gees. But the number one, I do know this. I think my mum was a big fan of this single. Obviously before I was born, but you know, she had it on a tape or something in the 1980s, so I'd hear this every so often, and my mum would be like, "Oh, I used to love this, still one of my favourites." You know, well, bear in mind that would have been, you know, maybe only 15, 20 years after this originally came out, because I'm talking about the 1980s. But I don't know how well Peter Starsett did after this. I don't know if he was a one-hit wonder. This was certainly his biggest hit. If he had any other well-charting singles in the UK, you'll see about it on screen. But I get the feeling he was kind of a one-hit wonder, really. But yeah, this is a great song. Nothing's absolutely blown me away on this one, but I mean, it's just been excited and a real kind of box ticker for me to finally react to an episode from the 1960s, a decade where, and I've talked about this before in previous videos, it's actually quite difficult to find, you know, full surviving editions of Top of the Pops, partly because of the BBC's junking policy that they carried on into the 1970s before they realised, oh, hang on, we're throwing away important artefacts of entertainment culture here. And also, these 1960s editions that I've come across on my travels while I've been doing this series, which must be getting on for about 3 years now. A lot of them have featured Jimmy Savile, and although I know some of you wouldn't mind if I reacted to an edition with Savile in it, me personally, I'd rather not. That's why every time I see someone and I scrub through and that pervert's on it, then I just ignore it. But there may come a time where I have to be sort of less choosy. But I don't want to think about that. That's a long time in the future, and we found one from '69. Hopefully we'll get one from even earlier in the '60s done one day. So hopefully this won't be the first and last 1960s episode of Top of the Pops looked at on the reaction series here on the Jimmy Barnes YouTube channel. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Good number one. Yeah, I've got a lot of fondness for this simply because it's a song I heard a lot growing up. It's something I'm surprised it's not been covered a lot more. It probably has been covered by a lot of people, but nothing that ever hit the UK charts after 1969. Originally, I thought when No Mercy's Where Do You Go came out in 1996, that was a cover of this, because it had very similar lyrics. It's like their chorus, "Where do you go, my lovely, where do you go?" And you think, oh, hang on, is that going to be a cover of Peter Starsett? And it wasn't. But that's a great single as well. I'm trying to think if I've reacted to that on that would have been probably a 96 or 97, yeah, 97 edition of Top of the Pops. Might have done, I don't know. Other people probably remember better than I can, really. What I've done a lot of these, but you know, one a month generally is the ratio I'm going for these days, but there was a time I was doing 2 a month, and back in 2020, when I was aiming to put a video a day out every day in April as kind of a sort of initial lockdown soother, for want of a better term, I put out loads of reactions. I don't know how I found the time, to be honest. So I burned through a lot in April 2020. So there we go. That's your Top of the Pops for this month. And we've got to have the credit. Oh, we get a look at the acts who get credited in the credits. That's quite a nice. That's quite a nice feature, actually. And I didn't realise they did that. So yeah, as I say, I will be back next month with another Top of the Pops reaction. It's been downloaded, it's been planned for, but in case I have to change it for whatever reason, be it I have to cut too much out, then I will find something else that's just as suitable for the month of April. But until then, I want to say thank you for watching, and will you join me again next time for my next Top of the Pops reaction. Cheers everyone. See ya!